Hey, let's tie a woolly bugger today. Now, here are the materials, and this is an easy fly to tie. It's really a streamer, and this is probably one of the most versatile flies that we tie. And so I start out by wrapping my thread around the hook, right behind the head, and then notice I wrap the tie around and then wrap my thread around the tie and the hook. Now I'm snipping it, and then I'm going to add the piece of chenille right behind it to tie it on, and notice I'm tying it right at the top of the where the hook bends. Now you can use a variety of colors. Now, one thing that's important is we got to make sure that you're wrapping your line and your chenille in the same direction. And notice I'm wrapping them together as well. Now I'm using my little, I guess my holding tool to grab that and hold it down while I now tie my marabou tail there at the end. So there we go. We'll wrap a couple of loops around there. 1, 2, and then we'll get the slack out of the thread. Now here's the deal, that marabou is loose, so be sure you tie it on real tight, but be careful you don't break your thread in the process. It's kind of a pain. Now we're going to snip the extra from the marabou that's hanging off. Again, this is going to be the tail. Now if you notice in the marabou, I've got a couple of flashes of flashabou in there as well, and you can put some different colors. You'll want to make these your own, and that's the advantage of tying your own flies. So I'll do 3 or 4 loops on there. Marabou is tough to hold on sometimes, so what I like to do is I like to put a few drops of Zap-A-Gap or glue on there. Once that dries, now what we're going to do is we're going to tie the feather in. We'll tie it pointing back. There we go. I'll hold it on the top, loop it around, and then wrap my string all the way, or thread all the way to the front and back. Again, the whole idea is to hold this material on good, because that marabou is so flimsy. Not really flimsy, it's just bulky. Okay, now the next step is we'll wrap the chenille around the fly from back to front, again going in the same direction as the thread. And notice what I'll do is I'll pinch it down and I hold it down with my finger as I go. And you want it to be nice and even. We get up to the front, and now what we'll do is we'll take a thread and wrap it around from back to front, and that's going to help hold that chenille down. And then I'll tie a few loops right behind the head. Now we'll snip off that chenille. Okay, next what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap my feather around the body from back to front, and I've got it turned to where I've got the bottom of the feather pointed back so that my feathers will point the right direction. And now I've got to get my slack out of my thread, and now I'm going to wrap it right around that feather, holding it in place with the tag of the feather. 4 or 5 loops. Now we're going to snip it. Next, we're going to hold the feathers back so we can get that thread right behind the head. Get it in real good. And next we'll get the whipping tool. We'll whip it around behind the back of the head a few times. We'll pull it out while keeping the tension tight on the thread. And now sometimes that feather will come out, so you have to go around and do some more loops. And then I'll snip the thread, and then, you know, the feather, you can trim it off low or keep it long, however buggy you want it to look, how much movement you want it to make in the water. I like to have a little bugginess, because particularly once things get wet, they tend to flatten down. And I fluff things out a little bit, trim it up a little bit more. We'll trim maybe the marabou up if we got a little too much on there. We'll trim the flashabou down if they're too long, because sometimes they're down too long. Now the final step is to hold things in place. I put a drop of Zap-A-Gap behind the head to hold that feather in place, the chenille and the line. So there you go. That's how you tie a woolly bugger.